So you're an artist over 35 or 40 years old, right? You feel like all the odds are stacked against you. It's too late. Nobody cares what an old man or woman thinks about anything, you know? Well, I'm here to tell you that actually the odds are not stacked against you. It's just the opposite. You have a lot of advantages that a lot of younger artists don't have. Well, first of all, if you started 20 years ago, you wouldn't have the capabilities to have the reach and be a fully independent musician the way that you have it now. It's easier than ever. The infrastructure is in place. You could sign up to an online distributor, get your music on Spotify. Back in the day, who knows how difficult it would have been to get yourself in like a Tower Records or whatever the hell they had back then, right? You had to go through a record label. You had to sign away your soul. You had to sign away usually most of your rights, and you would be indebted to them for the rest of the contract. And you and that a lot of times end up broke anyway, or they'll shelve your record so nobody could ever see it and listen to it anyway. So now we're fully in control. So first of all, the whole regret for not doing this earlier shouldn't be a regret, because now we could be fully in control of our creative output and our financial income, doing this without anyone stealing anything from the pie, right? So you're your own boss. You're your own everything now, which is comes with a lot more difficulty, right? The days where you could just be a teenager with some talent, and then somebody would, some creepy old dude in a suit would see you in the club and say, "Hey, come over here, boy. Sign this contract, and we'll make you a star," type of thing. Yeah, I mean, maybe it made some great music that way because, they didn't have to worry about anything in life. They didn't have to have a job. They didn't have to raise their children and all this stuff while trying to balance out what we have to balance out now to turn your life's purpose, probably, or a large part of your life's purpose, your real passion as an artist or a musician, to turn that from a side hustle when you're 35 or 40, you got bills to pay, right? You got mortgages, you got all types of things going on in life. So you got to balance that out, start it as a side hustle until it becomes the whole hustle, and seeing it as a actual realistic possibility to make some money off of it, right? And even if you're not doing it just for the money, just to have the output, to just say as a legacy, I had this talent, I wrote these songs, I painted these paintings or whatever, and it exists, put it out into the world, and when I'm gone, they'll still be there, right? So you think time's not on your side. Well, it is and it isn't. When you're 35 or 40, I mean, sometimes your life is half over, but that gives you a sense of it gives me a sense of urgency, at least, that, there's not enough time to care what people think. There's not enough time to worry about what, your bully in high school thinks of your dumb album that you put out or whatever. There's no time for any of that anymore. So let me tell you a quick story. I grew up in Queens, New York, and there's this kid from the neighborhood named Corey, and I always looked up to him. He was, a very good musician. Then eventually I got to the point where I became in a band with him, and we'd write songs together and play, and we have a very good band. And I just watch him write songs, and he would just pick up a guitar, and he had this great voice, and he would just come up with the best melodies, it would just pop into his head like nothing. I was like, man, how does he do that? He was like one of those special people, you had a special talent, had this ability that I'd never seen before. You just play, somebody would be riffing on the guitar and he would just come up with the perfect melody for it. Perfect, just funny words, he was kind of a goofball in a lot of ways, but he would just, his throwaway songs would be better than the songs that most people spend hours and hours and days writing. And they were just throwaway songs to him, It was fascinating to see it, and it was an honor and a privilege to be part of it. And when he was in the mid-20s, he died, he overdosed. And there's no more of him. He doesn't exist anymore. He was a person who existed in this world and is no longer here. And nobody, when I die basically, and my friends that knew him die, nobody in the world will ever know this ability that he had. Nobody will know this ever existed. There will be very little proof of this potential this genius potential that was in somebody, because nobody will remember that person in enough time, right? So I think the least we can do is share it in a way that will last at least a couple generations. Try our best. Because, you could die young, you could die old, but if you have a gift, you owe it to the world to know that, hey, I was a person who existed. I had this ability that was given to me, and I developed it, and I had these ideas that were really nice. I think we owe it to the world to leave a little piece of ourselves in the art that we create and in the music we write. I think we owe it to ourselves to not just be a story that somebody tells, right? To actually have something that is a legacy that's left over, to be proof, hey, this person really was something special. And not just me remembers it. Somebody 50 years from now could go and see that person really was special. And then when you see the fact that, like, hey, if I don't start this soon, then anything could happen. I could get diagnosed with something. Your sense of mortality is not as real when you're a teenager or when you're in your 20s. It becomes a real life thing when you see people your age passing away, family members, parents, all those things. It's just a reminder that, hey, we don't got forever either. So if this is something you really care about, if this is a part of who you are, which, I think most artists feel that way, most musicians, songwriters feel that way, there's not much time to mess around and just keep pushing it off and keep saying, oh, it's unrealistic, and trying to be so realistic. Well, now it is realistic to actually do it, right? It's very, very, very possible and attainable to just release something on your own now. With actual reach. It's never been easier to get that reach. There are methods to it, and there's a lot of people on YouTube that share how they do it. Anything from, short form content and TikTok and all that stuff. There's a lot of ways to do it. You can pay for ads, I'm guessing. There's no more need for gatekeepers, like music especially. It's anything from record labels. There was only a couple record labels forever, and they're all conglomerates of themselves, all the way up to American Idol. Like, you have to perform yourself in front of these judges to have the privilege to be signed, and have the privilege to sing these songs that other people have written. Just the fact of that, or I have to audition in front of you to give me the right to be listened to. That's what the music industry has been forever, and it doesn't have to be that anyway. We don't have to answer to nobody anymore. The people will respond if you're putting out good stuff. It doesn't matter if it comes from Apple Music or, Sony Music or Columbia Records. It doesn't matter anymore. If you get the reach and you have people listen to it, they'll listen to it because it's good. And you could be just some random dude, working a full-time job and finding time to release nice quality recordings and good songs and good music. And you know what? You don't have to answer to nobody. You don't have to sign any record label. You don't have to, have gotten approval and backing of an entire company and do what they say and write what they say. And you won't have to, take off the songs that you like of the album because they don't think it'll be a hit. There's none of that no more. There's no more need for these gatekeepers in anything. So you have that advantage as well. So you have time pushing you to get the job done. You have the means. It's never been cheaper and more attainable. Just when it comes to just gear, right? You don't need much to record a song anymore. Just need a computer. Some people don't even do it on a computer. So you don't even need it. Some people do it straight on their phone, right? But just need basically a computer, simple software, audio interface, the microphone, whatever instrument you're playing. You could do it all yourself. So with that there, it's nothing to be ashamed of, the fact that you've waited this long. The only thing to be ashamed of is if you keep going and don't do it from now on. Like if you see the fact that, hey, I am getting older, this is something I've always wanted to do, and then you just don't do it. You don't go for it. You don't shoot your shot. Like, you only live once, so what's the worst that could happen? You put out something that's mediocre? At least you say you did it. Who cares? You know? If it's mediocre and nobody listens to it, there's going to be no repercussions anyway. It'll just be out there and it won't get any traction, and you just say you did it. So the fear and all these excuses to not finally do something that you always wanted to do, or at least try, there's no more excuses anymore. You know, there's no more excuses. The only excuse is really, obviously, when you get older, there's a lot more things that get in the way. So the only excuse is bad time management and fear of not actually trying. And I say this for you, and I say it for myself too, because I need to hear it. I need to hear it. I've pushed this off for way too long. A lot of it was fear. A lot of it was lack of time management. A lot of it was not having the right space, or just a bunch of excuses is really what a lot of it boils down to. And yeah, I have a little bit of that regret too. I do. I really do, and I understand it. But I've come to the point where I'm beyond that fear. I'm beyond that regret, and I'm at the point where it just has to be done. It's non-negotiable. It must get done. Life is not going to get easier, and you can't wait till it gets easy. You have to do what you can with the time you have. Manage it. Even if it's half an hour a day, slowly piecing together a song, multi-tracking it. You know, you get the bass line tonight, go to sleep, go back to work, you know, do your family stuff. Get the guitar track tomorrow, you know. It's just a matter of making a plan, seeing what you have to offer, what you have to release, and then making a logical step-by-step plan. And that's what my next video is going to be about for myself, of actually sharing my step-by-step plan, putting it out there. So it's my own way of being accountable for myself, announcing to the world, or the 5 people who watch us, just what my steps are. And it helps me get organized too. So you got to organize your strategy. You can't just say, oh yeah, I want to finally do it, and then just run around 5 different directions. No, you got to build your direction. You got to build your path. And there's a method to everything. So one step at a time. Okay, one song at a time. Then build the knowledge you need to learn how to release it. That's going to be on my list as well. That's going to be some of my next videos too. I am overwhelmed with the amount of information that I'm learning and relearning about what's the best distributor. You know, BMI or ASCAP for, you know, to register with that. What are the steps of the process? And then getting to the songs that are actually pretty close to finishing them, and then going through the process of recording it. But I have to organize that whole process, and you should do the same. Start small, but just start. Just start. Age has nothing to do with it. The only thing it has to do with it is, it just means you have less time than someone who's younger sometimes, you know? So if you have less time, that means you got to use it more wisely. And you can't be wasting it nearly as much as you did in your 20s or early 30s, you know? You could mess around all you want back then and bounce back. But after a while, you can't bounce back if you're running out of time. So I'm running out of time. You're running out of time. There's no better time to actually go make this happen.